Well, hello everyone, and welcome here to FNL Gridiron. We're presented by Beals Insurance. Another postseason tournament on the way as we get set to welcome in the 2023 playoffs across all divisions. We will preview Division One exclusively tonight. We'll touch on D2 and 3 as well, but boy, oh boy, we have another jam-packed show over the next 60 or so minutes. We begin with Roger Brown, longtime friend of the show. Of course, he's senior staff writer at the New Hampshire Union Leader and the founder of New Hampshire Football Report, nhfootballreport.com. He comes your way in about 10 minutes or so to help us make sense of this 13-team tournament field in Division 1. Of course, we'll also speak with a couple of head coaches. At the bottom of the hour, Matt Lee makes his debut on FNL Gridiron. The first-year head coach at Alvern has the Broncos back in the playoffs for the first time in a long time. We'll ask the head coach what the secret to the success has been, as the Broncos, again, coming off one of their better regular seasons in years. And then we wrap up the show with Chad Zibolis. Glad to have the coach back on. Nashua North in the playoff field as well. They will host Alvern in our Friday Night Lights New Hampshire Game of the Week coming your way on Saturday afternoon. In fact, we have a doubleheader in store this weekend. Two games, both on Saturday, as we'll begin with Bishop Girton and Dover. No, wrong way. North and Alvern will kick things off at 12 o'clock noon. So the Broncos and the Titans at 12 o'clock noon here on Friday Night Lights, New Hampshire. Then in the nightcap at 6 o'clock Eastern, it's the 8-9 game between Bishop Girton and Dover. So we'll have two live broadcasts for you on Saturday. We preview those two games over the next hour, plus the rest of the matchups in Division 1. We welcome in my co-host here, Steve Beals, the executive producer, live from his home in Londonderry. Steve, how are you tonight?
Looks like you've been reading books, and I finished dishes. If you look at the background, Nick looks pretty good. Actually, looks like a little Thomas Jefferson librarian back at you there. I'd like to see some of the titles you got. But anyway, I have to say, when you look at the results of the power poll this week, the Salem really stands out to me, coming in other than the four powerhouse iron, teams that we kind of knew were going to be midway through, we're going to be there. Salem, week by week, has continued to work its way up the ladder. So very impressive season for them. Very excited to see what's in store when they take on Kevin Hebert's, Spalding Red Raiders. It's going to be a very interesting game. I think that the teams that are in the poll you're going to read deserve a lot of credit for a hard-working season. One of those teams in specific, Nick, is Alvern. We're going to talk finally to Coach Lee. You remember going way back in the initial jamboree over in put on by Ryan Ray and Manchester was a really good window into seeing this Alvern team completely revamped offense and a bunch what appears to be buy-in. I look forward to speaking with him later. And as always, I'm going to stop here because I want to give Roger Brown as much time to kind of fill us in, Nick, after you get done with the power poll there, to fill us in of what his thoughts are and where everything stands at this point. So looking forward to a great.
Well, let's take a look at the tournament bracket, shall we?
Yeah.
In Division 1, 13 teams in the field for the second year. And the top three, of course, have the weekend off. They get buys. Pinkerton, the number 1 overall seed, will kick their feet up and wait for the results to come in. Portsmouth is number 2. And, of course, defending Division 1 champion Bedford comes in at number 3. All three of those teams went undefeated in the regular season. All three were 9-0 overall and 8-0 against in-state competition. So, again, the top three seeds in order in Division 1, seeding-wise: Pinkerton, the top overall seed, Portsmouth at number 2, and Bedford at number 3. The tiebreaker, of course, was based on strength of schedule. In the 4-13 matchup, Londonderry will host Wyndham. That's a rematch. That features, of course, two Central Conference foes. It was a tight game the first time around, just a 7-point difference. That was a Lancer win. Of course, Coach Lozon has his team at 8-1 overall. Wyndham, despite a losing record, played some of the top teams pretty tough and were a ranked team most of the season in the New Hampshire Union Leader Power Poll. So that's an intriguing 4-13 matchup in round number one. The 5-12 is Exeter and Keene. The Blackbirds will make the journey east. That features a couple of wing T teams that probably are going to get after it on the ground. Keene and Exeter, they both kick off at 1 o'clock on Saturday, both those two games. Then we have in the 6-11 matchup, Salem hosting Spalding. The Blue Devils, despite the two losses at the tail end of the regular season, still finish up at 6-2 against NHIAA competition and 7-2 overall. Spalding, as we know, after a slow start, heated up in the month of October and looked to play spoiler on the road in that 6-11 matchup. That Saturday game is at 1 o'clock. And then the two that we're going to cover, as we mentioned, Nashua North, the number 7 seed, playing host to number 10 Alvern. That is an early kick. That's the first game to get going Saturday, a 12 o'clock noon start right here on Friday Night Lights, New Hampshire. Then the 8-9 game is Bishop Girton playing host to Dover. So we'll stay where we are on Saturday at Stello Stadium and get ready for that 6 o'clock kickoff between the Cardinals and the Green Wave. So 5 preliminary round matchups to preview tonight. 4. No, 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It will be 5 games, 5 winners will advance, and that'll give us a quarterfinal round of 8 next weekend. So, Steve, obviously we're going to get into the North and Alvern matchup with the two head coaches, but I want your thoughts initially on Bishop Girton and Dover. There'll be a lot of pass attempts, as we know. Both teams run the spread, and there should be a lot of points, at least in theory, in that game between BG and Dover.
I mean, after Dover comes off, with Exeter victorious in that game, you would expect Dover to come in with a lot of fire under Coach Coomber's program. They've got a great quarterback, no question about that. They've got a lot of weapons. If you look at the scores against them, they've done a pretty good job, as far as I'm concerned, maybe better, a good job, I'd say, on defense. This matchup, though, Nick, is very interesting because both of them enjoy throwing the ball. There's no question. I would say that although they're different type passing games, a lot of different style routes, Szymanski stands out to me as going to be a big factor in McDonough. That connection, if McDonough can get time from the defensive rush of Dover, Nick, if they can provide him time with Szymanski and a very good, solid host of other receivers, that game, I would say Dover's got to be very careful there. I think Dover's chances are going to be very heavily dependent on what kind of pass rush they can get and how they can contain and force McDonough to be uncomfortable in the pocket because he's prolific. Auburn can do everything. He can run, he can pass, he can roll out. Not that McDonough can't, but I think the biggest challenge that is going to be of both of these teams, and I would say the Cardinals' same situation, Nick, is going to be their defenses of line and how the defensive backfield is going to be able to match up against these receiver cores of both. The one thing that stands out to me is Szymanski is a very difficult guy to defend, kind of a Randy Moss type, and then has a lot of other attributes as well. Runs great passing routes. I know, and I'm sure that Coach Coomber's watched a lot of film and is going to have strategy between pass rush and coverage to be able to match up with him because he's been lethal. So I wouldn't even dare pick this game. I would expect both teams. I think BG, Nick, is going to be fired up at their home field. I expect a good crowd. They made the playoffs. It's kind of an interesting situation. You look back at their season. They've lost some games by a lot of points, but they have come in to beat Timberlane, the game that we did. And beat them by that much. I'm really excited about this 6 o'clock matchup between these two teams, as I am the Nashua North game as well.
Yeah, and a reminder, doubleheader gets underway at noon. We will have North and Alvern up first at 12 o'clock with our pregame coverage beginning at 11:45 on Saturday. And then Saturday night, we stay put live from Stello Stadium. It's Bishop Girton playing host to Dover in the 8-9 matchup, with the winner heading to Derry to play Pinkerton next weekend. All right, let's
Hey, Nick,
bring in our first
one more quick
guest.
thing. One more real quick
Sure.
thing, really quick. You had mentioned two wing tees when you talked about Exeter versus Keene. Keene's actually a power I formation where they load the backfield with a fullback and two tailbacks. And Coach Patino does not hide what he's going to do, but he executes it extremely well, as does Coach Ball. Everyone knows about this man's running attack that he's been able to produce over the years. I look for that to be a battle between two running offenses. It's going to be very interesting to see what that score is. It could be something as low as 7-3, 7-6, 14-7. Wouldn't surprise me in the least with these two teams, but that's going to be an interesting one as well. They all are.
Yeah. There's no write-ins either way. It looks like
No.
Some of these away teams could play spoiler for sure.
Spalding.
All right, let's bring in our first guest now. Roger Brown is ready to go, back on the show after a 2-week absence. He is live from his home in Exeter, and he joins us here on FNL Gridiron. Of course, he's the founder of NH Football Report and NHFootballReport.com. Roger, how are you?
I'm good, guys. A little under the weather, so I apologize for the voice, but, got to play hurt this time of year, right?
That's right.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you stepping up, for sure. You sound
No
pretty
worries.
good to my ears.
Okay, glad to hear it.
Roger, first of all, which game are you assigned to? Which game are you going to be covering on Saturday?
Saturday, I'm going to Londonderry Wyndham.
Okay, we'll start. Let's start there. That's a rematch, as we mentioned earlier. It was pretty tight the first time around. What do you expect in round number 2?
Well, I would say, Wyndham is probably the team that nobody wanted to face, right? I think they're much better than their 13 seed would indicate. I was looking back at the beginning of the year, the first power poll, they were 6th. I think I had them higher than that. So coming into the year, everybody was very optimistic about Wyndham's chances. And they had a 4-game losing streak. They lost some close games. Got a little bit of momentum coming into the postseason. So that, coupled with the fact that they played Londonderry tough the first time,
Yep.
I would say Londonderry better be on its A game, because I don't think Wyndham will come in intimidated. I think they'll come in thinking they can win. And just from a talent standpoint, they are anything but a 13 seed. So, I don't think the Londonderry coaching staff was too excited when they saw that first round opponent, when the pairings came out.
Right. Steve touched on it a bit as well. Exeter and Keene, two similar teams, two similar styles. They both like to run the football. Keene has played some good teams pretty tight this season. Exeter had a bit of a down streak mid-season, but seemed to rebound well the last couple of weeks. What do you see there in that 5-12 spot?
Probably a very quick game. Both teams just eating up the clock. The scary thing about these types of teams, and I would throw Spalding in there, maybe even Salem to a degree, is they just they condense the game, so to speak, in terms of possessions. So, if Exeter's playing, like, say, Londonderry next week or whatever, a mistake or two by Londonderry is magnified, because they're not going to get as much time or place to recover. Same thing with Keene if they win. It'll come down to run defense, I'm sure. Maybe one team could make a big play in the passing game. But I heard Steve talking. I would expect fairly low-scoring game in that one as well, just because both teams will be eating the clock and they're 4 and 5 yards at a time type of offenses. But again, like a lot of these first-round games, in terms of competitiveness, it should be a tight game, or very well could be. So it's not like one team, I think, has a significant advantage over the other.
Salem and Spalding, you touched on.
Go ahead. Sorry, Nick. Yep.
Well, you touched on Salem and Spalding. That's the 6-11 matchup. Spalding, one of the hotter teams, so to speak, at least over the last couple of weeks. Salem, despite the 2 losses against Pinkerton and Londonderry, did hold up pretty well against the Astros and Lancers. Who's the favorite there?
I would say that Salem is the favorite, but you got one team coming in on a 5-game winning streak and the other team coming off back-to-back losses, albeit to very, very good teams. So momentum would favor Spalding, I would say. Again, this is one of those eat up the clock type games. Spalding rarely throws it more than 1 or 2 times a game. Hunter Truman is their big back. He's usually over 150 a game in terms of yards rushing. So, a lot of these games, I think it's going to be important who gets a lead because these teams aren't necessarily built to play from behind. So, if a couple of weird things happen and Spalding jumps out to a 2-touchdown lead, or same thing happens to Salem, I think it would be tough for the other team to catch up.
Steve?
I agree. A couple games, even though we're not going to be there, I've got my eye on is the Wyndham Londonderry game as well. I would agree with you. You start counting up Damaris and Tigeron and the host of players on there that when you watch them play Salem, they were tough against Salem right to the very, very end. Arguably, with some fortune, that game might have been able to go the other way, but it was certainly an interesting game to watch. And I came out of that knowing that Salem was good, and I really got a firsthand look at Wyndham, and I couldn't agree with you more, Roger. Nobody's going to want to face these guys first round. I wouldn't call that a lucky draw by any stretch. However, given that fact, if you look at the last 2 or 3 games, 3 or 4 weeks that Londonderry has played, to me, they're a different team than when they played Wyndham in the past. They certainly look faster, and their defense is just swarming, and their offensive line seems to be cohesive and effective downfield blocking with their skill players on offense as well. What are your thoughts on the obviously you talked about the strength of Wyndham. What are your thoughts, though, on the perceived improvement that I have of considerable margin by Londonderry? Improved a lot.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I'm sure Londonderry, like all good teams, is significantly better now than they were earlier in the year. And as good as Wyndham is, and I think they're very good, they're going to have to play close to their best, and they'll still probably need Londonderry to not have their best effort, I would say.
Agreed.
The reason I really like Wyndham to keep this one close, or at least have a chance to keep it close, is they are a physical team. That's not going to be a problem for them. Which against Londonderry, their athleticism and they're big up front defensively. That is an issue for some opponents. But I think Wyndham will be there physically, and they'll probably need the ball to bounce their way a couple times. But that's every game it does. Somebody's direction. So, for the first round matchup, when they met earlier this year, I think it was tied late into the third quarter. So it's just not your typical 4-13. I would expect London to advance, but it's there's other opponents. I'm sure they would have rather faced Saturday rather than Wyndham.
Let's bounce over to the Cardinals and the Green Wave, Roger. Green Wave coming off a loss at Exeter. Congratulations to the Exeter Bluehawks for coming through that. I think that most people thought that they may come up a little short in that game, and Coach Ball comes out with I saw the fumble kind of in the end zone, and those things don't happen by accident. That happens due to a lot of pressure. But let's go back to the Cardinals for a sec and the Dover Green Wave coming in. Where do you see Dover? These are very different quarterbacks coming in, but both very accomplished quarterbacks when they play their game. How do you see that matchup? To me, it's defensive matchups on the defensive backfields of both teams. What are your thoughts? What about when you look at these two teams? Where do you see the breakdown, and where do you maybe see some advantages on one team or the other?
Well, certainly BG's passing game has got to be their edge, right? They got to be in terms of throwing the football, they're probably as good as anybody out there. Maybe Bedford in there as well. Dover, however, talent-wise, I look at them as more of I expected them to be like a 5 or a 6 seed, to be honest with you.
Me too.
I was surprised that they lost last week. I guess you should never be shocked, losing at Exeter, but they scored the second play of the game and they got nothing after that. That's a bit of a concern for me, coupled with the fact that they struggled to beat Concord 2 weeks ago. So they're kind of limping to the finish line here. But like Wyndham, however, from a talent standpoint, I would want nothing to do with Dover, because if they ever show up and have their A game or play very well, dangerous. 3 weeks ago, if you had asked me what team do you not want to face in the first round, Dover would have been my response. They played their way out of a home game. If Dover has its offense going, this could be one of the more entertaining games in all of the playoffs. Forget about just the first round. So, it's going to be which team plays better defense. That's as simple as that in my mind.
What do you think about now after we're talking about playoffs right now? We've finished the regular season. Last question, Roger. When you look back in the rearview mirror, how do you see this new 3-conference set up, 3 byes, and the whole structure of how it's working out? Your thoughts on looking back in the rear window on that?
Well, some good and some bad, I think, came of it. I don't know if we're going to stick with it next year. Of course, it was forced upon us because of the 21 teams rather than 20. Right. I like the fact that it allowed teams to play out of state. That was good. I don't mind a long season. I'm okay that it went past Thanksgiving. More football is okay with me. Some things I don't like is I preferred the balanced schedules that the other setup gave us. I like it when, if you and I are competing for a playoff game, Steve, we play the same 8 or 9 opponents. I think that's you look at some teams this year and they're not in the playoffs primarily because their out of conference games were much tougher than somebody else. Which it was unavoidable in this situation, but it was the best they could do under the circumstances. So it's worked out fine, I think.
5 weeks ago, I thought the preliminary round wouldn't have a lot of games. I'm not fully aware why I thought that. I just saw you kind of look at how things were kind of stratifying towards the top, but that just goes to show that that's why they played the whole season. I'm really thankful and pleased that a lot of the games that we're talking about in the last 10, 15 minutes are we don't really know what's going to happen. We have hunches, but either team could win. I think that alone is exciting on that part. I don't know if that's necessarily the 3 divisions did what they had to do, but we do have some competitive games preliminary, and that's a good thing. And it seems to me getting those other 3 teams, potentially even throw in Londonderry, those 4 teams that seem to be kind of in a bunch there as far as talent, especially Londonderry. I'd put them in there as well. That we have that these teams are able to settle it out, go into the quarterfinals, and maybe build some momentum.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's 4 teams that are kind of head and shoulders above the rest. So I don't know if we're going to have many upsets in the quarterfinal round, but the way it shook out in the first round, there's a lot of even matchups.
Yeah.
And again, even Londonderry, the way the pairings came out, even they have a tough matchup. It's not like they're going to, I don't think they're going to overwhelm Wyndham in any fashion. So
right.
We do have some good football in the first round, which is kind of unusual because usually you have a few games that are mismatches, but I really don't see that this weekend.
Roger, before we let you go, tell us a little bit about what's going on with the Ukika Foundation. There's a Player of the Year award, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, for the first time. 10 candidates were voted upon. The winner will be announced down the road. But tell us a little bit about what's going on there with the Ukika Foundation Player of the Year.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking, Nick. They're doing a Player of the Year award. Other states do an in-state Player of the Year. Maine does a fantastic job with theirs. Their National Football Foundation, which is New Hampshire's chapter, is the Ukika Foundation. So they announced the 10 semifinalists today that were voted on, and in 2 weeks they're going to come out with the 3 finalists and then announce the winner. I believe it's going to be on Thanksgiving, right before the 2 days before the Division I championship game. So it's just another way to promote football in New Hampshire, and it's similar to the Gatorade Player of the Year, but the difference is this award has to go to an NHIA player. The Gatorade Player of the Year has been going to a prep school player in recent years, so I just think there was a A lot of people felt that there was a void that this filled, and it can go to any player in any division, regardless of year or position, and it's voted on by coaches and media members. So, I think it's a good thing, and hopefully everybody will get behind it. It'll just grow down the road.
Yeah, exciting stuff. Roger, as usual, we appreciate it. Hope you feel better, my friend, for this weekend. We're going to need you on the sidelines, so
I'll be
get
good.
well
I'll
soon.
be good to go. I'll be good.
We figured you would be. Thank you, Roger. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Roger.
Okay, guys, take care.
That's Roger Brown, senior staff member at the New Hampshire Union Leader and the founder of the New Hampshire Football Report. On the other side, we bring in Matt Lee, first-year head coach with Alvern, the Broncos, fresh off one of their best regular seasons in quite a while. What was the secret to the success? We find out with Coach Lee next. You are watching FNL Gridiron. It's presented by Beals Insurance.
Our broadcast today, as it always is brought to you by Beals Insurance Agency, with locations now in both Bedford and Londonderry. Whether you need home, auto, or business insurance, Beals Insurance will get you both the price and quality coverage that's right for you. Just call 603-471-9999 or visit BealsInsurance.com to request a free quote and start saving money today. Again, that's BealsInsurance.com. How can you reach your team's fundraising goals at no risk and no cost? MG Sports offers a variety of products to make your team's fundraiser a success. Their products include tickets and discount cards to hundreds of local businesses. MG Sports now has a digital platform where athletes can raise funds in the comfort and safety of their own home. Don't waste another season. Raise more funds than ever before and become another football program in New Hampshire that sets fundraising records every season. MG Sports, fundraising made easy. Visit mgsportsfundraising.com to start raising money for your team today. The New Hampshire Tomahawks promote the highest level of club lacrosse competition, not just in the state, but in the country. Looking to get recruited? Director Chris Cameron keeps an open dialogue with the nation's top college lacrosse coaches. Over 400 New Hampshire Tomahawks alumni have played at the college level, including the ACC, Big East, Big Ten, Ivy, NESCAC, NE10, and more. The New Hampshire Tomahawks coaching staff has over 100 coaches, including current high school varsity and college coaches. The Tomahawks offer training for players of all ages, clinics, camps, and leagues, along with spring, summer, and fall elite teams. So play with the best. The New Hampshire Tomahawks, showcase and development for college lacrosse. Visit NewHampshireTomahawks.com and girls.nhtomahawks.com.
Hey, I'm Chad, the owner of New Hampshire iPhone Repair. We're New Hampshire's most trusted and affordable repair shop for your iPhone, iPad, iPod, and even Android needs. Don't worry, we're affordable, reliable, and we back our parts with a lifetime warranty. And you know what the best part is? No, what? We can repair your phone while you wait.
I know, that's why I'm here.
Oh, I know, Mrs. Green. Here's your iPad, good as new. Bring your phone into New Hampshire iPhone Repair today.
Buy local and save big. For over 26 years, Spectrum Monthly has been providing great local offers from businesses in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, delivered to your mailbox every month. Spectrum is chock full of savings from your favorite businesses. From local restaurants and retail stores to entertainment, fitness, and home improvement services. You'll have easy access to thousands of dollars in savings, including exclusive offers for Spectrum readers. Every month, enter our readership contest for a chance at winning cash and local gift certificates. Spectrum Monthly, no one brings you better offers.
Back here on FNL Gridiron. We're live every Thursday night, 6 o'clock Eastern, from now through championship weekend. Good stuff there from Roger Brown, as usual, the founder of the New Hampshire Football Report, the senior staff writer over there at the New Hampshire Union Leader. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we speak with Nashua North head coach Chad Zibolis as he looks to get the Titans back into the quarterfinal round. Reminder, 2 broadcasts coming your way on Saturday. We kick things off at 12 o'clock noon with Alvern and Nashua North. Our coverage begins at 11:45 a.m. So make sure you're dialed in for that. And then we round things up Saturday night with a 6 o'clock affair between Dover and BG in the 8-9 matchup. Preliminary round statewide in Division 1. We'll have an eye on that out-of-town scoreboard throughout the broadcasts as well. Let's bring in guest number 2, our first head coach on the program, making his debut
There he is.
live from Hudson. Matt Lee, first-year head coach with Alvern. The Broncos are back in the playoffs for the first time in a long time. Coach Lee, how are you?
Good. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing
We're
well.
good. We appreciate you joining us. Congratulations on a successful regular season. Your team earns the 10th seed. And, well, I'd imagine that there's some buzz around the program for the first time in years as the town of Hudson gets some postseason football for the first time in several seasons. What was, I guess, as we rewind the clock a bit, let's go back to the off season when you were hired. How did that process go down? And what were some of the first things you did once you became the head coach over at Alvern?
Yeah, so I was lucky to be hired early. So I was in here right after the new year. So we started lifting right, I think it was January 10th, 3 days a week. So that was huge. You know, if I'd been hired later in the spring or the summer, it's a different circumstance as far as the strength and conditioning. So we had 8 months of lifting before I even coached a football or even a practice. So that was really fortunate being able to be in here early and really just meeting the kids because they've known me for a while. I've known them. By the time we got around to summer, I felt like I've coached these guys for years.
Yeah. How big of a component is the weight room, so to speak? Is that the secret sauce, as Steve likes to say? Really get those guys in there early and often, or what has been, in your mind, the key to the turnaround after just a one-win year last year in 2022?
Yeah, the weight room's on everything, but it's definitely crucial. You look at around the state, the best teams in Division I, those kids just look different. We've played Bedford in the Jamboree, Pinkerton and Londonderry in a regular game, and you just look at the kids and you can tell the best teams in the state, those kids have seen the weight room over the summer, the winter, the spring.
Yeah. You mentioned getting to know the kids long before practice began. Who are some of the team leaders, some of the guys that may or may not have approached you in terms of locker room liaison, et cetera? Who are some of the guys you lean on?
Yeah, we have an interesting mix, actually, because we have 5 captains and 2 of them are juniors. Charlie Crawford and Ryan Rochler are our junior captains. And all of them play a different role, really. Cam Porter is more of our vocal leader. Aiden Mills is quiet, but just works so hard, never complains about anything. Really positive kid. So it's between the 5 of them, they all kind of bring their own thing to the table. Cam's more of the outspoken guy and takes the lead in that regard, but it's been a really good group. I think it's unusual you have 2 juniors, but their teammates voted them captains, and they absolutely deserved it.
Steve?
Well, Coach, I have to tell you, Nick and I went back in August on that evening at the Jamboree, and we're sitting down there, and, well, new coach, let's see what happens. I had read the material from Dave Haley, does a great job putting together. He did an interview with you. Obviously, want to give him credit for that because always take a look at that and Roger's stuff and Joe's stuff. And one of the things that 1-9 last year, but one of the things you said was offensive line's going to have to develop as a cohesive unit. Certainly looked like the last 2 games that I saw, a lot of good work has been done. Your thoughts on that?
True, yeah, and we got beat up a little bit in that Jamboree, but that was a really good experience for us.
Boy,
our schedule's brutal, so it's really tough.
I didn't see
every
you get
week
beat.
again.
Yeah, I didn't see you get beat up. What I saw was a fight with these guys that refused, the kind of fight that you'd love to see in a football team, a David-Goliath matchup. I saw a lot of David in that. And I saw a defensive unit that was not only cohesive, I thought that the positioning of the players, screw down 1 minute, changing coverages, and a lot of things maybe that they were able to achieve success, but just barely because of the effort and the proper location of your players. And then the offense was something I've never seen at Alvern, and that's what I saw. I know who you played and all of that and everything, but there was a lot of good things I saw happening in that game. And the two teams that come out of that thing, I said you got to watch is Alvern and Salem. You guys are still building, but I thought it looked terrific. The other thing, you have a large junior class. So for them to do this well as your program this year in the playoffs, is that something that you honestly had as an expectation with these guys when you saw them throughout the spring and summer, or what?
Yeah, we only had one team goal. So August 11th, first day of practice, we sat in the bleachers, and that was the only goal I had, was go to the playoffs. And the makeup of our team is our skill guys are mostly seniors, and everybody else is juniors. So we'll bring a lot back. We'll have to replace the skill positions for the most part.
Yeah, he also talked about learning a whole new offensive set, and how it looked to me like even in August that there was a lot of work and a lot of success that must have happened because it was cohesive. It wasn't where you are now, but of course, but it looked like there was a real plan there, Matt. How was this offense and how's things going as far as throughout the season? Because it seems to me it's even gotten better and more cohesive.
Yeah, you always worry with a new coach, new offensive and defensive and special teams scheme. You don't want to add too much. So our offensive coordinator, Rich Callahan's done a nice job. And it's just that push and pull the whole season where you don't want to put too much on the kids' plate where it's a little bit too much. But, just terminology was all new, figuring out who's going to play what position, what we're good at. Are we more of a running team, a passing team, working all that out? And then defensively, it's the same thing. Can we cover? Are we a blitzing team? Are we not? So that takes a lot, but luckily we do get a lot of time in the preseason in New Hampshire, so that was definitely helpful for us.
Yeah. Last point, just going to make last question I should say was you're facing Nashua North. Very interesting team. They've been chugging along there, and they're never an opponent that you necessarily want to play week in, week out, but you're going to Stellar Field. What do you see how you guys are matching up with them as opposed to other teams, and how do you think it fits? And, what is it you're looking after this game to say, hey, win, lose, or draw? What is it that you want to accomplish against this team, and how do you think you match up?
I think it's a good matchup. So they're talented.
Me too.
Planning for them is difficult. They give the ball to a lot of different guys. They mix and match players frequently. So you don't really know who it's going to be. And like you said about us getting better, I think they've gotten a lot better over the season. Yeah. Watching the last couple games, they're more polished. Seems like they've got the guys that they want in the right places. And I think it's a good game. A couple guys that are really good. Peters, number 6, an excellent two-way player. Three-way, really, plays special teams as well. So I think it's a good matchup. I think it'll be a good game Saturday.
Well, I offer you congratulations already so far. The season's not even over yet. But at this point, to finish where you finished this year, Matt, and you can clearly see the guys are buying in. Congratulations to you, your staff, the players, and the Alvern Hudson community. I go way back with the old Hudson Bears, playing against them many over almost 2 decades ago. And it's a proud community, and that the youth football and the feeder program has got to be pretty excited about what they've seen so far, knowing that you guys made. We're glad. Nick and I are excited about being at that game. Very interested to see how these two teams match up. But regardless of what happens, good luck to you, first of all, and congratulations on a very successful year. I think you've done a lot for Alvern. When I say you, I mean collectively, you and your coaching staff and everybody that participates. It's wonderful to see Bronco football back.
Thank you. I'm sure the Bears will appreciate the shout out. Yeah, they got some young talent down there.
And with a junior class like that's large, to get playoff experience is a phenomenal thing to be able to have that. That's going to be good. Best of luck.
Coach, we appreciate your time tonight. Best of luck on Saturday. And as we said, good luck moving forward. And congratulations on a great regular season. We appreciate your time tonight.
Appreciate it, guys, and thanks for covering our team. Have a good night.
You bet.
Thank you. And again, Matt Lee, first-year head coach with the Alvern Broncos, back in the playoffs. The town of Hudson is buzzing. Of course, the opponent is Nashua North. We'll cover that game for you live here on Friday Night Lights, New Hampshire. Kickoff is at noon. Our pregame coverage begins at 11:45. And that's the first of two, as we mentioned. All right, let's bring in Coach Chad Zibolis, returning to the program after a year's absence. Coach, thanks for coming on. I know we had some difficulties. I think you had an open house or some kind of a commitment the first time we asked you a few weeks back, but glad your schedule is clear tonight and we could talk some playoff football. How are you tonight?
Very good. How are you guys?
Doing
We're
great,
good.
Coach.
Yeah, we
Coach,
had an open house earlier in the year, and tonight I have youth football with my son. He's down at the field, but I'm lucky enough that it's over in Nashua North, so I can just come up here in the office and take care of it.
Appreciate that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, we won't hold you too long, Coach. We want you down on the field where you belong, but we would like to catch your ear here for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, no problem at all.
It seems like the consensus is, and we just heard from Coach Lee, but the overall consensus is that your team has improved week in and week out. How much improvement have you seen, and where is this team right now on the eve of the playoffs?
Well, the biggest thing and stuff we've talked about all year long is the O-line up front. We started, it was like a revolving door for the first 4 games. We didn't have the same group of kids week in and week out. And the time we got to, our 6th game there, we started to have a group that we finally kind of were able to put together. Injuries hurt us a little bit. We used Darius Smith at the running back for a little bit. He's back on the line with us. So now we've had a group that's actually been together now for the past 3 games, and they're finally starting to gel. And that's why that run game is really starting to pick up for us.
Yeah. You mentioned Darius Smith. He's one of the more recognizable names at this point, still only a junior and still with some room to grow. But does it start with him up front on really both sides of the football? How good is he?
Well, he's just overall on both sides of the ball. He's a true leader. He's a quiet leader. He leads by example. He knows the offense inside and out. He knows the defense inside and out. He can, put kids where they belong. He can communicate up front. So, as soon as we put him back down at that guard position, you started to see a difference. And then you add Melvin Fernandez and you put him back after his injury, and he came back, and now he can communicate on the left side of the line. At one point, we had a freshman left tackle, a kid named David Lago, that was starting for us early in the season. And he did a good job sticking in there, but still, it's tough to have a freshman left tackle, playing for you and not really understanding how we block and our blocking schemes and things like that. But now you get these 2 older guys back in there, and they're able to communicate up front. And, it's just been huge for our run game to get that back, and once you start being able to run the ball, now that opens up the throwing game a bit where, Johnny Canaway, he can throw the ball pretty well. But at the beginning of the year, we were kind of one-sided, and that's all we could do, so it was kind of tough for him.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Speaking of Canaway, how much growth has he shown, Coach, over this, I guess now 10 weeks?
Yeah, every week you see him getting better and better, and that's, him just moving along each week, getting to know our system. Our system is it's an easy system, but you do have to be pretty good at, what we do, where, we still want him to be able to run the football. We've always been a run first team. He's not exactly your run quarterback, but he gets it done to a point where, he can gain 5 or 10 yards on a read, and that's what we want out of that. You have to be able to respect that as a defense, that he can still carry the ball. But as he's starting to pick up the pass game and the reads that we have, he's really starting to pick it up. And you could see it last week, against Milford. He had I think a 200-yard passing game last week, which was huge.
Yeah. And then, of course, the other kind of household name, so to speak, is Luke Peters. Of course, kind of picking up where his older brother Jack left off. How crucial has he been?
Yeah, Luke flies around. He's good on both sides of the ball. I think defensively he's even a little bit better, just like his brother was. Offensively, he's dynamic, but defensively, he just instinctually he flies around the field and he knows what's going on. And it's tough to prepare for a kid like that. He's just all over the place. There's times where he's actually not in the right spot, but then all of a sudden he gets a pick six.
Recovery.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he's a dynamic football player. And we miss talking about a kid like Steven Rosario a little bit. He's been our running back here, and he's a kid that's he's come through our system, where he didn't play really much as a junior, and he's had to step it up this year, and he's really stepping up on our side of the ball too. So now, he can take a lot of the carries where we thought Luke might have to take a lot of those carries, but now Steven can take the brunt of the carries, and now, defensively, Luke can focus on that,
Steve?
Yeah, Coach. Congratulations on a good year. You made the playoffs again, and these matchups are good. Before we get to your opponent, I want to talk about a couple of guys that you and Nick just talked about, and just kind of give a thought on Canaway. One of the things we have the benefit of, obviously we've done some of your games and watched them, and then we get a chance to watch Tom King and crew with ETV. I spend a lot. I always know the games are going to be on, so that part of it's good. Had a little bit of chance to watch Canaway progress, and one of the things that I noticed about him is the decision making that he's doing, the discipline, and recognize it's not there. Either throw it out of bounds or just tuck it and go. And then the second thing I've seen is the timing of him being able to read the field and then say it's not there, I got to run the ball. They're kind of connected, the two things I said, but there's a little different nuance to each one. One is recognize it's not there, just tuck it and try to get back to the line of scrimmage. The other one is that the decisions that he's reading the field and his ability to see it and then say it's not there and say I'm not going to force that pass into double coverage. Your thoughts on that? Are you seeing? I see. That I guess that's
it's
what you're the coach, but
it's funny you say that because a lot of that's just with his confidence too, and he's starting to get confident and he's starting to see the field and where he wasn't tucking the ball at all at the beginning of the year. He wouldn't. There was times where you got to remember when we had Derek Finley. We would call a play and say, hey, third down here. If you want to just go ahead and tuck and run, go ahead and tuck and run. And that's a big part of an offense. If you have a kid like that, and he's starting to pick it up a little bit where, hey, you're going to have that clock in your head, and if you don't see what we're supposed to see, you go ahead and tuck and run. And the past couple of weeks, he's actually really started to do that, which has helped us up. He picked up a couple great first downs for us, and I just think that comes with the confidence and knowing where kids are supposed to be. And if they're not there, I'm either going to throw that thing away or I'm going to go ahead and run. So he's been doing a great job with that.
Good point, Coach. Could that confidence potentially also be is that you have Smith back on the line and you have a line that he feels confident, knows they got his back, because that's such an important get in the head, you know what I mean, with a quarterback. You think that's made a difference in his confidence as well as the other things within himself?
Yeah, most definitely. And just not just the kids that are up front, once he starts feeling like he has a little bit more time, then he does get that confidence. But he also starts to learn our protection. He knows, he knows what guy is his. So, in our protection, our running back always has a guy, but our quarterback always has a guy too. You know what I mean? So if his guy comes, he knows when to check it down. So he's starting to pick that up and learn, that part of the offense. And that just takes time. And as it's gone on, you can see the difference. He's really picked it up.
Before we go to Alvin, Luke Peters, real quick. Riley Bowles, a year ago, I had coined a phrase called "Let Riley Bowles be like Riley Bowles." I would say this year that let Luke Peters be Luke Peters, and I think you give him a lot of rope to be able to I can see that on the field. So you guys seem to have a good relationship, from the sidelines, from what I've seen as well. But is that true? Because it sure looks like you allow him to kind of make individual calls and hold him accountable. Is that right?
Yeah, to a point. He kind of allows himself to do that a little bit. But and Coach Tave, Coach Tave is my defensive coordinator, and he does an outstanding job with him. And he had a great relationship with Jack. And Luke is the same type of thing where you do kind of let these guys play a little bit. We do want them in certain spaces, but, there's times where, like I said, he'll make the wrong call on the defense, and all of a sudden he gets a pick six, and he just happened to be in the right place at the right time. So we're actually, we're cursing him out a little bit, but at the same time giving a high five on the way out of there. So he does have that. He's got that ability and just that football instinct. That same thing that his brother has, and now he's just starting to create a name for himself, which is huge.
Hey, Coach, everybody knows Chad Zibolis wants competition. You do not like 40 to 2 games. That's obvious. You want to grind it. You want the excitement of the game, and that's the only thing that really builds kids' character in the long run. We all know that about you. And one of the things that you're going against here is a football team on Saturday that I think it's fair to say Hudson football is back. We just had Coach Lee on. I don't know if you're able to hear or not, but what do you think about this opponent? What do you think about what they've done this year, and how do you look at this matchup on Saturday? I mean, there's no question everybody's going to Nashville North's a favorite, but I don't sense you're necessarily taking it that way as you approach the game.
No, definitely not. And first of all, he's done an outstanding job bringing this group back. You always have, those smaller towns. They always have tough kids. They're always willing to fight hard. And you look at what they've done, and I watch them on film. They're a disciplined team. They're a physical team. They fly around on defense. Offensively, you got the Aiden Mills kid who, I think he took his sophomore year off. Broke his collarbone last year, but right now he's averaging 100 yards a game, and he's a pretty smooth running back. He's probably one of the most underrated running backs, I think, in the state right now. He's got great vision. He'll be tough to stop. The quarterback, number 8 there, Sean, he's a heck of a player. He got put in there, when number 12 went down. And he the same type of stuff as kind of like what Johnny Canaway's doing, where when he keeps the ball, he's gaining that 10 or 15 yards, from that spread offense. So you got to be able to defend everything. They got some really good players on that team, and they're really buying into what coach is doing. And, it's great to see again.
We want to do 6 games weekend, Coach. Obviously that's impossible, but thank you so much for having a 12-6 game, because now we can set up and it's going to be a football afternoon for all the teams playing and stuff this weekend, but for Friday Night Lights, we get really excited about doing multiple games. So, we'll probably be up there having pizza in between the games. So don't be afraid to stop up. We'll give you a couple slices. All right. Best of luck to you.
Hey, thanks for everything you guys do. It's huge for New Hampshire football. It really is.
You bet.
Coach, we appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time tonight. Let you get back down to the field for your son's practice. Thank you again.
Thank you, guys. See you Saturday.
You bet.
Thank you. Chad Zibolis, second-year head coach.
Who would want to play? Who would not want to play for him? I mean, offensive line, defensive line. He knows every position, and every kid knows that wherever he plays, he understands there's 11 guys that play on both sides, and he cares about everything. So, great guy.
Seems like we had 2 players coaches on tonight, so to speak, with Coach Lee and Coach Zibolis. Final reminder, doubleheader Saturday. The preliminary round in Division I kicks off at 12 o'clock noon in our Friday Night Lights New Hampshire Game of the Week, presented by Beals Insurance. Our pregame coverage begins at 11:45 a.m. Saturday night, we're at Stellos Stadium. Once again, for a 6 o'clock affair between Dover and Bishop Girton. That's a 5:45 pregame. Again, the kick is at 6. Steve, your final thoughts?
I think Roger hit the nail on the head earlier, right on the head, where we, in this preliminary round, have good games. And we have 5 good games. I would argue, obviously, there's favorites here, but going in, it's kind of like you never know what can happen. It isn't like you're thinking the other team, if everything's going well and the favorite team makes a few mistakes, they're going to be right in that game. And I wouldn't be surprised if we have a few upsets, to be honest with you, this weekend, because it's different teams coming on with different strengths. So for that, I'm excited about, and I'm geared up for these 2 games we're doing at Stello, because I think this is going to be a big day for Alvin to play well. Win or lose, I believe they have the goods. If Salem makes some mistakes, I believe they have the goods to potentially pull an upset. but it's going to be an uphill battle, and they're going to have everything go right against Coach Zibolis' team, because I think that they're cruising right now. They're playing well. But exciting to know. North. It's exciting to know that that Alvin's a team that's going to come to play. Spalding, Salem. Where has Coach Hebert really got these guys right now? Everything points to the fact that Salem is probably the favorite, but Spalding's playing extremely well. You can go right on down the line with these games. Londonderry. Okay, Londonderry's playing out of their minds right now, Nick, but Wyndham is been tough for them. And, anything can happen there. So it's an exciting week of football. Just the fact that we can cover 2 of those 5 games is really, really exciting. And then, of course, the nightcap, Nick, you and I have talked offline, very prolific offenses. It's going to see who's able to come and execute to the best. So those are my thoughts. And, then you got battle of the running game with Exeter and Keene. It's a fun weekend. New Hampshire football is doing well. So
absolutely. Want to thank our guest tonight.
Healthy.
Of course, Roger Brown, the senior staff writer at the New Hampshire Union Leader and the founder of the New Hampshire Football Report. We thank both Coach Lee and Coach Zibolis for taking time out of their busy schedules to join us tonight. Want to thank the sponsors as well. Of course, Beals Insurance, MG Sports Fundraising, New Hampshire iPhone Repair, the New Hampshire Tomahawks, and Spectrum Monthly. For our director, the man behind the curtain, Ben Beals, and my partner, executive producer, Steve Beals. My name is Nick Anastas saying so long. This has been FNL Gridiron, presented by Beals Insurance.